Hello everyone and welcome to Mountain Lake Journal. I'm Tom Halleck. This week, advocates who want to allow terminally ill patients who are in pain and suffering the right to end their own lives say after debating the issue for more than 7 years, it's time for New York to join 10 other states and legalize that option. Many of those advocates are traveling across the state over the next few weeks, holding press conferences like this one in Lake Placid, and holding community meetings in other towns and cities like this one in Plattsburgh. They're hoping to get more people to support the bill known as the Medical Aid in Dying Act that was first introduced in the state legislature in 2015. It allows a terminally ill, mentally competent adult with 6 months or less to live to get approval from at least 2 doctors and medication that they can then take when their suffering becomes too great to bear. Corinne Carey leads the lobbying effort for the nonprofit group Compassion and Choices. She says polls now show a majority of New Yorkers and doctors support giving terminally ill patients this choice.
People want this option, and I think lawmakers know it. They just need to set aside their fear about the backlash that they might receive and do the right thing and stop the suffering here in New York, take up this measure and pass it. We need them to be brave. I think it's really important for people to understand that when this law passes, and it will, it's just a matter of time, and it's a matter of how much suffering these lawmakers will allow to continue to happen. When this law passes, nothing will change for people who don't believe in medical aid in dying. It is entirely voluntary. The dying person is in the driver's seat from the initial request to the ingestion of the medication. No doctor, no hospice, no healthcare provider has to participate in medical aid in dying if they don't believe in it. And no patient has to request it.
Among the advocates at this community meeting at the United Methodist Church in Plattsburgh was former North Country Assemblywoman Janet Dupree, who was pushed for 7 years to get the bill passed, both during her final year in the Assembly and since she retired. She has continued to reach out to former colleagues and members of both the Assembly and State Senate. Both of her parents, especially her mother, suffered in their dying days.
It's very personal to me. I've spent a lot of time with my former colleagues in the Assembly. I retired at the end of 2016, and I've gone back down, and of course the last 3 years we haven't been able to, but made a lot of phone calls, and I will be going back down in 2023 for face-to-face conversations with many of them I know who are still there, and certainly a lot of new ones I'm going to have the opportunity to meet and hope that we can finally get this legislation passed. And unless they've had the personal experience, they don't always understand how important it is, and it's easy to not want to have to think about it or talk about it. But people who are in that position deserve to have the right to have the best care they can have, to have it under their terms. They have to be mentally capable. They have to be in charge of their own faculties. In order for this to take place.
Well, it's a very personal issue.
Nancy Murphy from Vermontville is another advocate. Her sister Joan ended her life when the pain and suffering from terminal ovarian cancer became unbearable. Joan lived in Vermont, where an option like this has been legal for about a decade.
I wish that everyone could have the option to have a peaceful, loving death like that. My sister had the choice. She made the determination, and I wish all families could have that choice available to them, all patients and families, to have a loving and peaceful death.
The Medical Aid in Dying Act will be reintroduced this coming session for the 8th straight year. Jay Fetterman is a retired doctor from Saranac Lake who has long supported the bill and believes eventually it will pass in New York.
I'm quite certain it will be passed eventually. I mean, when you realize it's been passed in 10 other states and D.C., New York is, a fairly progressive state with issues like this, so I think it's just a matter of time. but hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later, because without the legislation, a lot of people will suffer unnecessarily.
Opponents include the Catholic Church and disabled rights advocates who say it is morally wrong to end one's own life, and who fear the new law could also be abused and possibly used to prematurely end the lives of severely disabled individuals. Backers of the bill say there are safeguards built into the law that would prevent that from happening. You can see a full statement from the Catholic Church on our website.